What's up guys, Travis from AmericanTrucks.com, and today we're checking out the Borla Stinger S-Type dual exhaust system in this very old school and very cool split rear exit configuration. Now if you own a 2009 or 2010 F150 and you got the 5.4 motor under the hood, then this exhaust system is going to be an excellent way to upgrade your volume and tone. Now, as far as actual volume is concerned, I'm going to go ahead and rank this a solid 3 out of 5 on my loudness meter. It definitely wakes up the sound of that 5.4 motor, but it doesn't go overboard. And I'm also happy to say that there's no drone inside the cab. Usually with most exhaust systems, when you throw a bigger muffler on there or you delete things like your resonators or your catalytic converters, you deal with all kinds of volume inside the cab, and some of it might not be too pleasant, but that's not the case here. Borla takes a lot of time designing the mufflers in their kits to really cancel out all the resonance in drone, so you will hear some good volume inside the cab, but it's not going to be overbearing. It's not going to be anything that interrupts a conversation with family or friends, if you will. Now, there are a lot of options available, and a lot of those other options do make the truck sound good, and they do provide this kind of volume. So why this system in particular? Well guys, there's really no other way to slice it. Borla is one of the big names in the industry, and they pretty much make some of the most well-built exhaust systems that I've dealt with. I've installed a ton of systems, and overall, theirs are the easiest to install, and overall, they're the most well-built. This is actually made out of 304 stainless from end to end. That's an upgrade over the 409 stainless on the factory system. You can see behind me there, ours has some rust and corrosion on it. That's not going to be the case here. 304 is never going to rust, never going to corrode, so this is an excellent option if you take your truck off-road, you deal with a lot of mud, or you deal with a lot of snow or rain and things of that nature. And again, that install, like I said, very simple. This is a bolt-on job. There's no drilling or cutting required. We're actually reusing our factory mid-pipe, and they do provide an extension pipe that's already the appropriate length. Borla also takes the time to weld all of the over-axle pipes onto the muffler. They also take the time to weld the tips onto the exhaust pipes. So overall, lining everything up on this system is way easier than other options. The install is a lot quicker too. I wager it'll take you about 2 hours to get this done, and that's even if you're doing this in the driveway without a lift. And for that reason, I'm giving this install a pretty modest 2 out of 3 wrenches on my old difficulty meter. Now, one last thing to consider is the price. You think this system would be pretty expensive, and honestly, at around the $800 price point, this system's a lot less expensive than other options that are made out of 304 stainless as well. So it's a pretty strong buy if you're looking for quality, but you don't want to spend top dollar. So again, if this sounds like the system for you, go ahead and pick this one out, and you can come back to this video in a little bit. I'm going to show you guys all the tools you need to get out of your toolbox, and then I'm going to walk you through that entire install step by step. Alright guys, before we get started, you'll need a couple of drive ratchets for your sockets. You'll need an 18mm wrench. You need a 13mm socket, as well as a 15mm deep socket and a 22mm deep socket. Now those are just the minimum tools. Optional but very helpful tools include a breaker bar for those large bolts in the back for your new hangers, as well as an impact gun with an impact swivel socket, and an exhaust hanger puller tool. It's also helpful to have a dead blow mallet and some spray lubricant to break up some stubborn parts. Alright guys, we're starting up here on this flange just behind our wide pipe right here. There's 2 bolts holding the flange together. You'll need a 13mm socket. It's helpful to have an impact swivel socket because it is a little bit of a squeeze in here. All right, now that our exhaust is disconnected, we have to remove it from the vehicle. It's held in place with some of these rubber isolators. There are 3 in total, 1 in front of the muffler and 2 directly behind it. The 2 behind the muffler are held in place, but you can free up this one. It's going to make it a lot easier once we pull the entire exhaust system from the vehicle. It's helpful to have an exhaust hanger puller tool for this. Okay, once you have that first rubber isolator freed up, you're going to tackle the remaining 2. And again, these are going to stay in place, so we're going to spray them real good, let them soak up. That way we don't have any of this rust and oxidization in there, keeping this thing jammed in there. Once you spray both of those down, we're going to push the entire exhaust system towards the back of the truck in order to free it up. All right, so that last isolator is located back here next to the spare tire, just above the leaf pack. Okay guys, now that all those rubber isolators are soaked up and lubed up, now comes the fun part, and this is where you're really going to need to take your time. Grab a friend if possible. What you're going to do, you're going to grab hold of that muffler, use your big old muscles, and push the entire system towards the bumper. You're going to do it just enough to get those hangers to pop free. The entire system will come down, and you can gently work it out from underneath the truck. Good little tip if you're doing it by yourself, let the over axle portion of the tailpipe rest on top of the axle. That'll give you a little bit of support there. All right guys, we got that factory exhaust system removed. Now it's a very good idea to mock up your new system. That way you can make sense of all the tubing and piping and you know where everything's supposed to go. And more importantly, you can make sure that when you're actually bolting this thing in place, you don't have any problems with any of the flared ends. They're not crimped or bent or anything like that. But while we have both systems on the floor, I really wanted to show you guys a good comparison and go into a little bit more detail about some of those install notes that I was mentioning earlier and how it's very important that the install goes smoothly. I've done a lot of these exhaust systems, and a lot of times, some systems that cost a little bit less, well, you got to take a lot more time getting it bolted up. Usually things like the over axle pipes come in separate pieces, the tailpipes come in multiple pieces, and overall you got to reinstall your hangers by themselves. They're not pre-welded or anything like that. And that's really why I like this Borla system. When you're doing this stuff at home, you don't have a crazy lift, you don't have some of the tools that we have at a professional shop, and that's why that install should go easily. And Borla did a good job here, guys. Everything fits up pretty much perfectly. All the over axle pipes are pre-welded to the muffler. Your exhaust tips also come pre-welded to the tailpipes themselves, and overall the install just goes a lot easier. This is one of the most easy to install dual exhaust systems currently available. And I also wanted to show you guys some comparisons in overall build quality. I mentioned earlier, this is made out of 304. Again, pretty much the best stuff you can buy. You can see that our factory system here is made out of 409 stainless. It's holding up well enough functionally, but it doesn't look too good, especially after you get some miles and a couple of winter seasons under there. If you're really going for a truck that shines, you want to take it to shows, you got a big lift under there, you can see all that piping, this is what you want. This stuff's not going to rust, it's not going to corrode, it'll polish up nicely for years to come. Now, as far as getting the install done up, well, I did mention there's no cutting required, and I was honest with that. Even though we removed the entire system, we're actually going to be reusing our factory mid-pipe here. So let's go ahead and get this guy removed. You're going to need to grab a 15mm deep socket. We'll flip this thing over, we'll remove our mid-pipe, we'll bolt it back up to our flange, and then I'll show you guys how to get our Borla system set up. All right, now if this gets stuck here, you can see we have a lot of corrosion on here. Very helpful to spray it down with some penetrating oil. Then you can grab a dead blow mallet, gently tap the flange. That should pull the mid-pipe off of the muffler. All right guys, so when you go to bolt this back in place, you want to get it pretty tight, but you want to have just enough slack in here that you can move it and kind of wiggle it around a little bit. That's going to make it a lot easier to get the new Borla extension pipe installed. And it's also going to make it easier for us to get leverage on all our tubing, so we make sure everything fits together without any problems. And again, to tighten this stuff down, you're going to need a 13mm socket. All right guys, once you got that mid-pipe in place, you can throw your new extension pipe on here. We are going to be tightening it down using that factory fastener, so you'll need that 15mm deep socket. Now there's probably going to be some corrosion inside that factory pipe, so it's helpful to grease that up or spray it down as well. Now we are going to leave this loose because it's already pretty tight, and if we need to make any adjustments, then it'll be available to us. All right guys, now we're going to throw our muffler in place. Make sure you got that large clamp on the inlet of the muffler. And you're going to have to line up that second rubber isolator as you get the slip fit connections together. So this is where it's going to be helpful for you to go back up to that flange and actually loosen it up. Now that you got your mid-pipe on there with that second hanger. All right, once you have your muffler in place, we can start installing our tailpipes. But before we do that, we actually have to throw our new hangers in place. Now, the instructions tell you to actually remove this bolt and nut from the leaf pack. I'll be honest, guys, if you're doing this in the driveway at home, that's a little bit involved because you're basically disconnecting the entire leaf spring. That can get a little crazy. So what we're gonna do, we're actually gonna keep this real easy. We're gonna change the orientation of the hanger so it's facing towards the outside. You can still get that rubber isolator in place. But in order to break this loose, you'll need a 22mm deep socket to get that nut off of there. Now, if your truck has some miles on it, these are some pretty big pieces of hardware, so you'll probably need a breaker bar to get it started. All right, and then once you have that started, you can grab a ratcheting wrench and finish it up. Now, if the bolt starts spinning like mine is, pretty simple, grab an 18 mm wrench and keep it static. Now, as you're doing this, you want to be very careful that you don't actually remove the bolt from the pocket. All right, pretty simple. Once you got that nut removed, go ahead and throw your hanger in place and go ahead and put that nut back on. All right, once the hanger starts interfering with your wrench, you should have just enough clearance to get that deep socket in there with an actual drive ratchet. All right, guys, once you got that first hanger in place, go ahead and do the same thing on the opposite side, and then you can throw a rubber isolator in place. Once you've done that, we can throw on our passenger side tailpipe. Pretty simple stuff. Make sure you got one of those clamps on there first so you can get those slip fit connections together. Just go ahead and wiggle the tailpipe assembly up onto the over axle pipe on the muffler. Then once you got that seated, simply bring it up, and you can slide it into this new rubber isolator. Now, obviously, fitment's going to be a little weird at first until we make some adjustments, so some of your hardware might be touching things like the bumper or the leaf pack, but we'll take care of that later. Okay, guys, next we're going to throw on our driver's side tailpipe assembly. It does come as two pieces. It's actually easier to install it as one piece, so go ahead and fit them together. Then get that first piece seated on the muffler over axle pipe, and then same process as the passenger side. Go ahead and slide the hanger into the rubber isolator. That's all there is to it. Okay, guys, so we're all wrapped up with actually getting our pipes in place, and as you can see behind me, everything lines up pretty nicely. So next we can actually tighten down all of our clamps. Pretty simple stuff. You can get away with using that same 15 mm deep socket. All right, guys, once you got all those clamps tightened down, go ahead and take a step back and make sure you're happy with where both of your exhaust tips are sitting. If you want to make any adjustments, pretty simple. You can actually move these hangers around a little bit. You can actually even bend these pretty easily, so you don't got to go back and loosen anything like that. But that should wrap up the install, and that also wraps up my review of the Borla Stinger S-Type dual exhaust system with the split rear exit configuration fitting your 2009 or 2010 5.4-liter powered F150. I'm Travis, thanks for watching, and for all things F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.